My name is Lorna McCafferty. The MassCan's Virtual Education Village is produced and broadcast thanks to an all-volunteer effort of the MassCan's organization, the Massachusetts Cannabis Reform Coalition. MassCan's is a registered 501c4 nonprofit dedicated to educating lawmakers, regulators, and the general public about the harms caused by a decades-long racist drug war. To find out more and to become a member, please visit masscan.org and follow us on facebook.com/masscan and on Instagram @masscan.org. Today we are here with our 20th Virtual Education Village panel. The Virtual Education Village has become an integral component of MassCan's educational mission in the time of coronavirus. Today's panel, titled Demystifying the Complexity of the Cannabinoid, will cover hemp cultivation, CBG, Delta-8, CBC, and CBD, and so much more. With me today to discuss those topics is Michael Goodenough from D&G Agtek and SweetHeal brands. And on behalf of the MassCan board and the organization, we are pleased to welcome you to the 20th Virtual Education Village. And I will now turn it over to Michael for his introduction.
Hey, thank you very much, Lorna. Thanks to everybody here to have us. We're highly excited to be at this space and involved with the efforts that we've been doing as far as in education for the years, and you guys are amazing. So thank you very much for having us. Yeah, we're very excited to be here, and our organization is one of the first hemp growers. We're actually the second license in the state of Connecticut. We do extraction. We're the first license in Connecticut. We also are licensed by Department of Consumer Protection for cosmetics and human consumables. So we have a really deep integration within the entire vertical of what's happening in the hemp industry. A lot of our pieces are around sustainability. So, we reuse 100% of what we grow, including the stalk, the entire plant, even after and during extraction, all the byproducts. So we make fire starters and hemp cottons and hempcretes and all kinds of really interesting different use cases about the whole plant and its whole utilization. But Lorna, to your point, I think a lot of people need to understand what's going on within this whole cannabinoid base that's out there, and we need to kind of enhance that education and demystify it. So I'm really excited to be here with you today and bring the lessons learned that we've built over the past couple of years here.
Thank you, Michael. We've been hearing a lot about CBG lately. Could you please explain what CBG is?
Absolutely. So CBG is the parent to all of the rest of the cannabinoids that are out there, right? And so it's really important to understand that. It is the first to form. And the reality is between week 3 to week 7, there are different enzymes that are absorbed by the plant that causes CBG to convert to either THC or CBD or one of the other minors within the whole spectrum. And so CBG is really being highly identified right now for folks from an emotional perspective, right? It's something that we have a lot of folks that are utilizing, and it's dealing with their anxiety, for their ADD, for a whole multitude of different emotional side areas. And it's extraordinary. I mean, we have an individual didn't leave her house for almost 9 years and went out to dinner for the first time. We have folks that we white label a number of products, and one of our products are really focused on the premenstrual cycle for women. And quite frankly, it's during those times where we don't have something to battle that emotional side of what's going to come forth. And we all know that emotions will always take hold, right? So for me, my ADD, it really helps me to calm it, focus, stay zoned, but still use the tool of spinning those plates, because that's kind of what I'm good at with all that ADD variable. So It's the parent though, and that's a really important component for, I think, the rest of our discussion. I can grow a plant right now that is going to be predominantly CBG. I can grow one that's going to be predominantly CBD and one that's going to be predominantly THC. But as we start talking about the minors and trying to get genetics or cultivars that are specific to the minors, we're not going to get a dominant plant of CBC or CBM or the other minor cannabinoids that are there. We're actually going to find, so CBG is a very special component.
Can you please explain what CBC is?
Yeah, absolutely. So CBC is very specifically focused around, and right now it's still so new within the space of discovery. And let's talk about that for a quick half second, right? The space of discovery, the ability to, sorry about the fingers in the camera there. The ability to study what's going on with each one of these cannabinoids and take them and produce some type of statistical reporting. There's lots of countries that are doing this. The US is one of the few countries that have so many requirements and takes so much time to actually conclude a study or deal with a study, that's what, in the US, we have issues producing these. But if you go to Israel, if you go to Italy, if you go to Norway, there's a number of places that are far above and beyond where we're at today, right? Okay. Which means that there's a lot of misconception about some of these things. And it truly means that if you're not involved with the study or have run your own research and development around some of these cannabinoids or these cannabinoids, then realistically, you probably only know hearsay. And so there's a lot of hearsay that's out there that's not very right, in my opinion. But I'm not trying to beat up anybody's body of work, right? At the end of the day, all bodies of work are good, and they're all hypotheses that we're trying to turn into something that's proof, right? So for us, CBC is actually an enhancement. If I take a small amount of CBD with a small amount of CBC, and I put them together, it makes that CBD feel like it's a much larger quantity, right? So it becomes a conduit to enhancing the other cannabinoids that are found within the spectrum. We're finding that it also enhances the other cannabinoids or other things like terpenes. So if we take a look at it in conjunction with other ingredients that we might include into a recipe of combining this full spectrum with, it has that conduit and that enhancement, which is extraordinarily powerful. And we also need to be cautious with, because if I put CBC with THC and a small amount of THC, it's going to enhance the effects of that THC, right? So goods, pros and cons.
Right. Could you please explain how you extract the different cannabinoids?
So first off, we're very much about an all natural way. The bonds that these cannabinoids have with one another are very important during your processing, right? During your body's utilization of them. And quite frankly, there are ways of stripping them into isolates. There are ways of separating their bonds with one another. We are a pure ethanol extraction process. So we start with pure ethanol. That's food grade alcohol. Something you would be able to buy at a bar if they sold 100 to 200 proof, which of course they don't, but that's okay. But grain alcohol and winterization. So that alcohol is at a -40 to -70 degrees Celsius. And so the winterization process is very, very important. During that process, when you're flushing that alcohol onto the flower to remove the trichomes, because alcohol and these cannabinoids, they dissolve in pure alcohol. So they are a solvent. The solvent melts them, right? It reduces them. Alcohol also will have causality to some water-soluble components. What I mean by that is if it's not winterized, the phosphorus, the magnesium, the calcium, the potassium that you might have used to grow this plant, and if you didn't flush your plant properly when it grew up in its flower state in the last couple of days worth of its growth cycle, those things still exist within your plant. And so if you're extracting without winterization, you're leaving ability to dissolve those pieces into your crude, right? So with the ethanol, we produce a crude, Rick Simpson oil, Phoenix tears. That crude contains lots of things. It's only 60 to 70% total cannabinoids. So that additional percentage of what's in there, that happens to be anything that was that your solvent, reduced into the alcohol layer. And again, if it's not winterized, you're picking up those water solubles too. And that's, again, the magnesiums, the potassiums, the calciums. Those are all the things that we find in that crude, right? So it's really important to kind of take into consideration as you go the holistic, the proper way of doing this. We also extract the terpenes right off the top with a steam process. So we remove the terpenes because through the ethanol and then through the heating process of removing that ethanol and leading the crude, because that's how we remove that alcohol, we end up really damaging those original terpenes, which is why supercritical it saves the terpenes because it doesn't go through the same process. So when we put it in and we evaporate out all of the alcohol and the alcohol separates from the crude, that crude is then taken into what we call our wiped film. It's also called fractional distillation, where there's a cylinder and your oil is wiped onto that cylinder. And as that cylinder is at a specific temperature, so at 248 degrees, a certain portion of this distillate or your crude oil will actually turn into a gas because it's inside a vacuum. And that gas now is whatever was at that fraction. And so let's say if you were to cook your turkey, right, or something else, the outside skin would actually start to crisp and burn before the inside. It's fundamentally the same thing. Different layers burn off at different temperatures. In this case, again, we're in a vacuum, so it's just turning to a gas, but it's then collected on a finger that sits inside that cylinder, and that finger is at a colder temperature, so what was just turned into a gas immediately turns back into its solid state or its liquid state. And that is how we remove fractions. So we will remove a fraction of the fats, waxes, lipids, clean up that crude. We will grab a little bit of the THC to start remediating the THC levels because, again, we're heavily focused on CBD. And CBC is the other cannabinoids, the full spectrum. But to be legal, right, we have to also stay within a certain frame of THC allowed within that distillate. And so, yeah, our process is very organic, very holistic, and there's nothing synthetic about the process.
Thank you. Delta 8 seems to be the latest craze. Could you please explain what Delta 8 THC is and how it's extracted?
So let me just preface on this question with, I'm not trying to insult anyone's business that's out there today. Delta 8 is something that we're not doing simply because it is, to the large majority and to the knowledge that I have, purely synthetic. Delta 8 is just like Delta 9. The difference is that you have the double bond of that molecule is in a different location than once it started. And so it is still THC. The reality, however, it is synthetically created. You have to actually have a reaction, whether it's with acids, iodines, or other methods that are not organic and that, in my opinion, should not be consumed. Again, this is just Mike's opinion. We are very well versed in how to do this, but everyone right now is working on studying this process. And I could be completely wrong because somebody's in their R&D lab building intellectual property that does this in an organic way. But if you have to create a reaction with acids or other things to change the molecular bond of what exists, to change that molecule, it becomes a synthetic process. And we all have to be very aware of what we're consuming. Although it was grown organically, it's being converted synthetically. And so, Delta 8 will get you high. And you know, at the end of the day, I think the psychotropic effects, the medicinal effects of that are a wonderful thing. But I think we do have regulations, the Mass Cannabis, you know, the CCC. We have organizations who were built to protect us as we go, because quite frankly, the question of how is it made right now isn't being asked. People are thinking it's just like CBD. People are thinking it's just like CBC. And by the way, you can create CBC synthetically and CBN synthetically. So, it's an interesting arena. It is federally not listed as a part of the illegal portions, right? So THC is not. So it is right now in the loophole of being legal. So it can be bought and sold pretty regularly. So yeah, it's an interesting portion of the industry. And I got to be honest with you, I know a lot of people who are struggling for a long time that suddenly are not struggling because they're actually able to generate Delta-8 and utilize it within the hemp platform. And so to them, I say, God bless. And I really wish you the best. I sincerely do. And please, if anyone can kind of change my opinion on that topic, let's have a conversation. So yeah, thank you, Lorna. Sorry.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you. What do you think the health implications are of the Delta-8 if it's synthetic?
So, I mean, if we look at the history of what genetically modified, GMO'd original seeds or genetics of anything from soy to wheat to even our own hemp, right? When we genetically modify something, there is an impact to what it is when we digest it or consume it. I don't want to speculate on a bunch of things that I think that this might have impact to, but it will change the way we digest it. There will be causality. And so what that is, I couldn't tell you. For me, especially in a state like Massachusetts, where we have recreationally legal and we have medical, I ponder why. I really ponder why Delta-8 would even be a topic, quite frankly, other than it supports the hemp industry in some cases. It allows people to take their CBD. It allows people to take their CBG or even their THC and go through conversion and bring it to a new market. And so, again, I'm not busting on anybody's business, but I am afraid of its implications.
Speaking of Delta-8 and people talking about it, I've heard that you can extract the real Delta-8, not synthetic, from solventless hash. Do you think that's a possibility?
So we went through this and debated this pretty heavy, quite frankly, internally. You need to create a reaction to create a conversion. Yes, Delta-8 does exist. It is natural, but it is such a minor that you're going to have to create some type of separation. And so if I'm going to go after CBC to have an isolate of CBC, I'm going to use chromatography and I'm going to separate the bonds that it has with other cannabinoids. And so at the end of the day, that's not synthetic, but that is because I'm using ethanol for that process. But in this case, we are still generating that conversion, right? That reaction with the acids and the other pieces that are there. We won't be doing that for CBC, but we will be going after other minors that are found. And so, yes, there are natural ways to come with Delta-8, but if you do the math for a half a minute and you think about Delta-8 is at 0.000 something within the scale, well, that means you're finding a couple of grams within a total kilo, unless you're mining the platinum, right? That's really what you're doing. You're mining the platinums, and we're going to be doing that. That's what our industry is going to change into, is mining the platinums and the diamonds out of the gold. And so, yes, there's going to be amazing innovations around how to do this. And it's a learning, we're just beginning. So I'm excited to what we're going to be able to do nearing the future. And I would love to, again, collaborate, especially within this community, on how some of that's being done. Unfortunately, a lot of people see that as their intellectual property, and we probably won't really see a lot of it for years. So we're kind of more of that open source community. We share our knowledge because that's the only way we really learn, if we're in the box or out of the box. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Great. What are the effects of the different cannabinoids? Is there a good reference for cannabinoids and their effects?
So I really I would really refer people to going to testimonies, right? So there's great data on a lot of these. CBM, the one that was discovered, well, it's debatable whether it was Italy or in Israel, so I won't get into that. But CBM is all about digestive, right? It's all about Crohn's disease. It's all about people that have massive digestive issues. And I think in the past we've said CBD does. I think in the past we've mixed the message around a lot of these because we've used full spectrum. And because it exists as a minor and you have CBC as a minor, some people might feel the effects of these minors stronger than others. Or their system doesn't necessarily need the CBD because they're consuming it regularly or at a higher dose. Suddenly the CBC kicks in, the CBG kicks in, the CBM kicks in, right? CBN, with like Nancy, CBN is for sleep, right? It's a heavy sleep aid. In fact, realistically, you can feel very hungover the next day if you consume too much CBN. I can create CBN almost through over decarboxylating my current hemp, right? That was actually a process of remediation that we wrote for the Department of Agriculture last year. In 2019. And so one of our processes was to over decarb and actually add a bunch of forced air, and that oxidation converted our CBD to THC also, because it was remediating THC. That was our goal. We took both the CBD and the THC down and we converted it to CBN, right? But you can do it synthetically also. So again, using acids or iodines and other things. So it's a really interesting time, and we're really letting loose the world of chemistry in this space. You're getting very innovative people who are inspired by learning in this whole space and coming up with just some amazing capabilities. We're a big Cascade house. That's the organization that we buy most of our equipment from, is Cascade. And quite frankly, we're heavily involved within their space. We share a lot of data between the organizations. I think we have a lot of PR that's going to be coming from them in the new season. Stick to studies and books that are being written and built around this industry by people who are spending the money to spend it and do it, right? We have lots of great authors that get involved to feed the data like ourselves. But at the end of the day, to truly publish real works with real studies that cost real dollars, that's where we also need to support those larger sized organizations in their efforts. UConn's, MassCann's, the UMass, other organizations that are out there in this area.
At the marijuana ball we just had in December, you spoke about the fact that people of all walks of life in our community are using cannabinoids in their daily lives now. Do you have any success stories that you can share with us?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of just really heartwarming and heartbreaking stories. A lot of folks, some folks at end of life just looking for relief of pain, and they don't want to be so heavily drugged that they can't communicate, right? Going through hospice and other things. We've got firefighters, we've got police officers, we've got first responders, school teachers, we've got doctors that are practicing medicine. All of them have different use cases. There's a chief of police's son who actually uses, he was one of the police officers. Anyway, he actually used our lotion, and this is his testimony, not anything coerced. But he uses our lotion on his nose because he snores at night, and it's anti-inflammatory, so it actually takes down the swelling in the back of his nose.
Wow.
Right? Like, who would have ever thought of that, except for somebody that went, my wife's really complaining every night. If I really want to be able to cuddle, I need to learn to try and help this situation, and boom, it solves the issue, right? And so we have people with restless leg syndrome. Their legs at night just, muscles spasm and cause them to jump. We have testimonies on people that have solved their night tremors with it. We've got a gentleman who had seizures his entire life. He's got an amazing life and extraordinarily strong children and great support, but he suffers from seizures every day. Since he's been consuming our CBG and our CBD, both sides of it, he's been seizure free for almost 3 months. It's just amazing, the healing power of what we're involved with right now, and it's a blessing to just have that involvement. It's amazing.
It really is. What types of products does SweetHeal produce?
We do a lot of fun stuff. So again, we're about total sustainability, right? So we do hemp plastics. A lot of our sample jars are actually made from hemp plastic. We do hempcrete. So we actually just created our own a brand new bonding agent for our hempcrete, which shows the highest results that I've ever seen within a hempcrete formula. And to be quite frank with you, I had to step away from the construction industry. I had to step away from the concrete industry to find my bonding agent. I actually had to go to an industry, and I won't share it right now until I give this person props, but after testing is done. But I had to step into a completely different industry and find my answer. And so it's amazing. Again, it just came from collaboration with a group of people. And the gentleman we were talking with was like, I use fibrous material all the time, and here's the 3 different types of things I use as a bonding agent. And we were like, oh my gosh, all we needed to do is talk to someone outside of our box. And so if there's not communities like you guys, we're never going to get out of our box.
Right.
So products you asked in general, sorry. So that's our hempcrete, our hemp plastics. We do incredible smokables. We have a King Palm cigar kind of experience. And we actually sell it in a box of 6 different types of hemp that we grew this year. All of them have different terpenes, and the terpenes really have causality and effect, calming, soothing. We in the CBD industry can't make medical claims. We can use the testimonies that we've had. However, with terpenes, we can make any kind of claims we want because they've been around for as long as they have, and you cannot contest the calming effects of lavender. That is what lavender does. And so we also are now able to start stepping into a whole new level of marketing and making the claims of those medical and psychological relief that you get from utilizing a cannabis plant, because you have limonene, pinene, all the flavors and smells you naturally find out there on trees and in flowers are found within our plants. And those terpenes are extraordinary and have healing power as much as the cannabinoids that are there, the cannabinoids that are there.
Right. I love terpenes.
Mm.
Where can people get in touch with you to get your products?
SweetHeal.com is our primary page. And again, there they can get everything from cosmetics. We have incredible cosmetics and lotions and tinctures and salves and face masks and just an extraordinary amount of things. And so SweetHeal.com. A lot of the message of what we're really trying to push within SweetHeal.com right now is really reducing our green footprint, right? Reusable, renewable, recyclable. And so with that, we're selling refill bags. So instead of buying a new tincture jar every 30 days and starting to fill up our landfills, we'd like to sell you one of our refill bags. So you can refill that jar, wash it out, clean it, reuse it 3 or 4 or 5 times. And then we can throw it away if you wish, right? But I think for us, we also had to meet with a certain consumer. We don't want to tank the market for all of the other people that are in this business. So we're not racing to zero and trying to go through a massive price reduction in order to try and chase these other people that are running around manically. We're priced right in the middle of the market, and there's a lot of studies that are around that. But we still wanted to meet those people who might only want to spend 40 or 50 bucks, and they can't spend any more than that. And so we also hit a price point that kind of helps them to get the relief that they're actually looking for without having to go over, above, and beyond. And in fact, we wouldn't complain if you filled somebody else's bottle because you love their Mary Palmer's branding, which is the most amazing branding that there is. But anyway, if you love someone else's branding more than ours and you want to fill up their jar, you're more than welcome to too.
Well, we completed that pretty quickly. It's only been a half an hour.
And how much time do we have, Lorna?
Well, we could go up to an hour if you have more that you'd like to talk about.
No, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I think from a MassCann perspective, right? So from what's been going on over in our side of the world, a lot of the different individuals who are dealing with extraction in the extraction process, we're finding a lot of people who are struggling to kind of understand what the differences are. in that extraction process. And I know that we've seen a number of different posts around how people are going through that. What is a good tolling? What is a good price, right? Around what you should be buying distillate at. And, you know, I think to our farmers, we really got to be conscious. If I'm taking a jar of lotion that has a gram of oil in it, and that's selling for $50, that gram of oil should be worth anywhere from $5 to $7, right? And so our farmers, when they're being paid for their hemp right now, people are paying them, and it's ludicrous. It's anywhere from $5 to $50 a pound. So 1 pound, 30 pounds gives us 1 liter. That's 1,000 grams. That's $50,000 worth of oil.
Wow.
Right? So why are we ripping our farmer off by paying that farmer $150 for the equivalent of that 30 pounds when we intend to turn it into oil, and then we intend to sell it as a cosmetic, right? The farmer and that extraction process, to be quite fair with you, to be quite honest with you, there needs to be more meat on the bones to them. We need to take care of those people because they're the ones that are building a historical knowledge of our success. If we lose one, we lose what their lessons learned are. We lose what their moment of history was. And it's imperative to not lose our history as we're building a brand new industry. And so we've really got to find a way to hold our community responsible for not tanking the market of what's happening around us and keep our farmers fed. And I think as people look to buy their distillates, they need to really ask the question of how was this created? Where was it created? And please show me the hemp farmer that it came from, because I would like to know that it was Lorna down the road who grew this hemp. And it wasn't Billy Bob out in Colorado and you just bought it at an extremely cheap rate and you put it into your tinctures, your lotions, and you're pretending that it's yours, right? I want our community to thrive. I want the mass farmers to succeed. I want to see it grow nationally, but quite frankly, here in the East Coast, we grow differently. We grow boutique. We're not Kentucky. We're not these other states, you know, that have massive amounts of land and Californias and the Oregons, and we are a boutique environment. And that means we grow, in my opinion, and I'll tell you, I have studies on this where we've looked at the amount of mold, pesticides, again, going back to the study that we were dealing with magnesium, the phosphorus. Our East Coast material is far better than what we're finding from the West Coast, far better. And I find that a lot of that is because my West Coast people, well, once it's shipped here, I'm not really sending 5,000 pounds back. The cost of shipping is a large cost. So once it gets here, my ability to contest what it is highly reduced, right? And so a lot of that material, when we were first buying it, we were first doing our research and development and all the bodies of work of putting our machines into place and everything else along those lines. I do have people that pay me to do their extraction and ship it from Oregon, from other states. And so I send it back to them, but at the end of, the results back to them, their pieces back. But at the end of the day, out here, we really take time to flush our plants. So I'm not running into that magnesium and all of those other sediments. That becomes sediment, which clogs up and breaks the engineering within my extraction process. So the more it exists, the harder it is for me to be able to create clean and quality crude or final full spectrum distillate to those people that are out there. Hey, have you ever used the CBG? Have you had an experience with it?
Yes, I bought some from you and I loved it. I'm all out. It did seem to help. It's like a calming kind of a feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's wonderful. And I think if we're adding knowledge to the whole CBG thread, let's just take a moment to realize that CBG is the parent cannabinoid, right? Because it is, or cannabinoid. I say cannabinoid because I say cannabis. I don't say cannabis. And so I have this issue of calling, anyway, cannabinoids or cannabinoids. I mix it up pretty regularly. That's the dyslexic Mike. Anyway, the reality is that from the CBG perspective, too much CBG, consuming it, your body metabolizes CBG just like it metabolizes THC because it is the parent. Make sense? Okay. Mm-hmm. So those sticks that you buy, those pea sticks that you buy, those pea sticks don't measure whether you have THC in your system. They measure the metabolites that are in your system because you metabolized whatever it is that you metabolized. So far, so good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I metabolize a bunch of CBG and leave all those metabolites behind, it now will begin to show up on a piss test for those sticks. That same urine going to a lab would not show it. That same, if you took a blood test from that individual, you would not show up hot for THC at all. In fact, we've gone as far as doing hair follicle tests. However, if you are peeing on a stick, and those sticks are what's used when you start the military, just before you go into the military. Oftentimes, that is what they use for a CDL driver. So we also have to caution our community on its consumption. Anyone who is going to begin to use CBG and doesn't carry a mass medical or does not have a medical card or does not have the justification and is worried about a urinalysis, start by the sticks. They're very inexpensive. Start utilizing your tincture or whatever it is. Again, the consumable is where we have seen it. And we have seen it at doses of above 250 milligrams on people that are way less than 120 pounds. All right. So that's where it first started showing up. And that's consuming one full tincture dropper. So there's 30 droppers in a 30 ml bottle generally. So that's consuming one whole dropper in a day. And we've seen those sticks start to show up. And we saw it actually with 47 different individuals who don't consume cannabis in any way, shape, or form other than that singular product that they were consuming. And so it just as an overall higher arching result, I suggest people go out there and buy their sticks. When they're starting to use Delta 8 and their cousin says, dude, you're not going to pop on a test. Dude, do yourself a favor and buy the sticks and check, right? Do yourself a favor. And so, yeah, that's a very important topic that I wanted to actually cover within our CBG discussion.
Great, thank you. Very important topic.
It is. It is.
Oh, I'll look at Facebook and see if we do have any questions. I don't see any. Yes, is there anything else you'd like to say, Michael?
I can't emphasize enough how much we really want everyone to support their local farmer. Go shake their hand. Go up to them and thank them for spending that time. THC and hemp are going to be farmed. Inside a grow room, that's a refrigerator, that's a lab. That is not going to be necessarily grown by a farmer, although a cultivator is a cultivator. So I'm not going to insult anybody's business. But if we're talking about large scale, if we're talking about, a lot of what we're doing right now is working with the root structure. So we're trying to enhance the root structure to increase the enzyme absorption ratio between weeks 3 and week 7. So, much like you treat your plant and utilize different things like baking sodas and vinegars to prevent the outside of your plant from catching mold because it doesn't provide a suitable space, you can do those same tricks to the root systems. And so our goal this year, we make living soil. Sorry, what was that? Oh, yep, sorry. So we make living soil. We actually create and generate our own soil by going out into the woods and grabbing giant trees that have the most fungus and mold and characteristics on that tree of its degradation and biodegradation. That starts the bottom layer of what we then put leaves and grass and hay and dirt and then we eventually end up pouring on a microbial tea or a tea with a bunch of enzymes in it, sugars and other things. When those two come together, they create an incredible natural ecosystem within that soil, and it becomes what we call living soil. And each one of the zones or the horizons within that soil build an incredible ecosystem within it. And so that living soil becomes what we use within our greenhouses, and the results have just been astronomical. But the question becomes, from a pot size, the size of your physical pots, how is that root system, and how well does that root system actually grow? We found that if we can inspire the roots to grow more subroots rather than singular tap roots and additional large size branching, we're seeing a massive uptake of the enzymes that are causing those conversions of your CBD and CBC. And so this year, we're really studying a number of different potential treatments to those roots to actually enhance those characteristics and capabilities. And so I look forward to the farmers. I look forward to the knowledge, because I'm getting this information from farmers on what they've done with their own crops in the past, that with an accelerated root structure, the more that root structure is able to absorb the frequencies and the earth's natural magnetic and again frequency-based characteristics, the better that plant actually grows. And furthermore, in a pot, we were growing almost 14 foot plants in a 7-gallon pot. We were using 100% of that space, but it was larger sized roots that were dominating that space and causing the soil to be more compacted. So if we can go to a smaller root structure and branch structure, that should show up at the top of the plant and give us more buds, as opposed to long gangly branches, right? And so really, for anybody that's out there, watch what's happening in the root world of the plant this year, as opposed to the budding tops of those plants this year. And look into really generating your own soil. I know a lot of people are running out there and buying brand new soil and then throwing it into the backwoods. But I got to tell you, if you take that soil, you throw it into the backwoods, you add some leaves, you add some hay, you add a little bit of grass cuttings and a couple of other things, and there's plenty of DIY recipes around this. You can make incredible regenerative soil that you can reuse year after year. And you have to have a cycle, so you can't use the same one the very next year. You have to use the next grow cycle. But utilize and recycle what you're using today. Don't just throw it in a lot, you know?
To start with egg dirt, or where do you get your dirt to start before you make all of it?
Well, I mean, if you're actually trying to reclaim soil, you can use it right out from a dead garden, right? You really can. Now, you have to be careful, because there are diseases and there are problems within some of the soil that's out there right now. So you don't want to bring a diseased soil into your living soil. So you should, honestly, you can start with store-bought soil and then add in all of these other layers as you cycle through. However, it doesn't take very long to learn about what you're looking for. And you can look at, under a microscope, there's plenty of examples of the different diseases that you might find right now within soil in your region or your area, because all of the factors of soil are very different, right? In some places it's very high in certain things, in other places it's been polluted, and so you really need to know the area of the soil of your region. However, there are lots of great videos and very inexpensive microscopes that can be purchased, and if you're into this kind of thing, it's a really neat place to go. And so you can look up what these different diseases look like, what these different funguses that you don't want in your soil look like, and have your own home science day. You know, take a couple of minutes to explore the other side of your brain a little bit, you know, and feed the system. If you make some brilliant and amazing discovery, feed it out there. So yeah, I would suggest people start with that store-bought soil that they already spent money on. But after their second cycle of buying soil, they should never have to buy it again. And in a greenhouse like this, you know, I can easily spend $20,000 to $40,000 on soil alone.
Wow.
Just for that grow right there.
What about hydroponics? What do you think of that?
Hydroponics are amazing. We actually started our foundation on hydroponics. So hydroponics, what hydroponics does, you can't control the soil every second. You can't just throw in something to offset the balance of your soil, right? So you're in a position where with water, I can change the nutrients, I can change the pH level, I can change the water balance instantly. All I have to do is add those nutrients, is add those values to it, and it's going to change the water. So it gives you a perfect way to scientifically dial in what you're growing, right? And in fact, you can kind of control the environment to a point where in a hydroponic system, I can grow our hemp plants to match the hemp plants that are being grown in California based on the nutrients that are in the soil, based on the pH that's in the soil. I can actually mimic a location. So we used to grow strawberries like they were being grown in Mexico because we mimicked the exact nutrient level of what the best soil was producing those types of strawberries. So hydroponic is amazing, but what you're missing in a hydroponic is the enzyme found in your guano, in your worm castings, in your fish castings. It's what's found in our natural poop, right? Those are the same enzymes that cause your CBG to convert to THC. Those are the same enzymes that cause your flower to build the CBG in the first place. So those enzymes are incredibly important to also have. So at the end of the day, for me, when we first started, it was about water control and trying to minimize the consumption of water that we were having by using hydroponic. We can go through some really amazing natural filtration processes. But to stay organic, you're having to use seaweeds and other things to provide a balance to your water or increase their nutrients or increase that organic matter has a tendency of really clogging up your lines. And so if I spent, and we have incredible hydroponic systems, the size of bays that go in here, but the minute a feeder line gets plugged, I kill thousands of plants. The minute a system, a pump shuts down, I can shut down my entire environment. So if you don't have redundancy in pumps so that if you lose one, the redundant one comes on and backs it up, you end up having a lot of problems. And so if it's at small scale, it's probably one of the best things that you can possibly do. It's amazing. We would grow heads of lettuce in a 5-gallon bucket with the nutrients pre-mixed into the bucket with the lid on top of it, and we would never touch it, and it would grow a most amazing head of lettuce, and you would never have to water it or do anything else, right? And we did some amazing experimentation. Our strawberries were the most amazing strawberries you could ever imagine. 100% of what we grew was sold to the local restaurants within the Pomfret area. Basil, amazing. However, it adds a lot of humidity and moisture to the environment that you're putting them into. And so if you don't have ability to create and control humidity, then you're going to be in trouble. So what I say to your hydroponics question is look into aquaponics, because with aquaponics, you're bringing in the natural fish, or you're bringing in the natural enzymes of a living species, right? You're bringing in a living entity to give you those natural enzymes. So the only difference between hydroponics and aquaponics is aqua, I've got fish or other organic matter or other life that's a part of that ecosystem.
Wow. You put fish in with the actual hydroponic system?
Different ways to do it. Yeah. So, I mean, you can, but that would be more of a garden, right? Because to grow at scale, you need so many. Usually your fish live in a separate environment, and you pull water from that environment and you feed it into your system, because you don't want to back feed anything negative to your fish either. So if for some reason somebody puts in some type of nutrient or some other value or changes the pH level, you'll kill all of your fish. So generally, and realistically, there's lots of grants around this right now. There's lots of money around including that wildlife value into a hydroponic setup to make that aquaponics or that aquaponics level. But we want to be protective of the fish. And that's a lot of what you're seeing right now in the aquaponics world, is the protection to the actual life that's floating in that tank. It has life, and you can't just kill it by accident. It's, you know, and I think that's where the caution is really setting in from the FDA, USDA kind of, you know, focus.
Great. Anything else?
I'm sure there's a million things. I love talking with you. I appreciate you guys. I feel so fulfilled with this piece. I thank you for the platform to share knowledge, and I really look forward to other people's feedback. You know, non-controversial. I think we need to learn to be a group of people that get along without being confrontational in this whole world right now. And so I would love to just have a really solid, open, fair debate with anyone on these topics that they feel I might have been misleading.
Great. I'd love to hear more if you do get any questions. Thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning in to the MassCann's Virtual Education Village, produced and broadcast thanks to the all-volunteer effort of the MassCann organization. MassCann is a registered 501c4 nonprofit dedicated to educating lawmakers, regulators, and the general public about the harms caused by a decades-long racist drug war. To find out more and become a member, please visit masscann.org and follow us on facebook.com/masscann and on Instagram @masscann.org.